I don't know from where to start this time. We're reaching a point that's very critical and very serious. We didn't witness such state that we are in conditions since the early beginning of this war. And I doubt that Gaza in its history witnessed such conditions. Whilst we are squeezed in few kilometers, Israel made no choice for the people just to stay in Gaza City. Yes, people were displaced from the eastern part of Gaza City, from the north to the western part of Gaza, where I'm staying now, in very deteriorated conditions, which reached to critical points with all aspects. Thousands of families with no tents, with no shelter items and roads, and they have no other choice just to stay. Although that we witness high escalation from the Israelis with the intensive airstrikes in this area. This morning there was an airstrike, one of the high buildings, Tiba building. Few number of people were killed and injured. Hundreds of tents were damaged. It's kind of pressure on these displaced people to leave Gaza. We as civil society organizations, what I received from my colleagues, they are staying with the people. They will stay, continue delivering services. As the medical teams and the other sectors, we will keep being in Gaza with the people in order to deliver what we can deliver from the services. We are part of this social fabric, and we will continue carrying our responsibility towards our people. Although 2 days ago, Israel launched an airstrike on Aisha, a society for women and child protection, where one of the aid workers were killed, pregnant woman who was used to come to this NGO to receive medication, killed, 5 years old child also killed, other injured. Israel continue attacking the aid workers and the humanitarian organizations, whilst the international community still now failed to take the responsibility towards protecting the civilians and aid workers. It's very critical that if Israel will continue its military operation, I'm warning here that we will witness big number of casualties, whilst the health system here is collapsing. Israel also will impose restriction of the entry of the basic needs, water facilities, since it's dependent on fuel as the health ones. Also telecommunication could be stopped. We have high concerns about the lives of hundreds of thousands of people who will keep staying in Gaza City. It's a real responsibility on the international community to act now to stop this military operation. People still keep some hope that there will be kind of action to stop this military operation. That's why, but this is part of the reasons that people are staying. There is no safe area or a humanitarian area in the south or in the middle area. This morning, Deir al-Balah was under severe attack. We have concerns about tens of thousands of children who are malnutrition, and if displacement will happen, they will lose any opportunity to have medical treatment or to receive any kind of supplementary aid supplies. Also patients, people with disability, elders who has no capacity to leave they will stay wherever they are. We have this experience along the months, 23 months of the Israeli war in Gaza. Although that we have about 17 days of declaring Gaza as a famine zone, there is no improvement, there is deterioration with full meaning. No improvement on the entry of aid to Gaza. Until now, there is nothing distributed through our NGOs because of these Israeli restrictions. While we are witnessing the continuous killing of the aid seekers, whether in the GHF or in the Zikim and Moraj. The main thing that people are asking now is the protection of civilians. Protection is needed now. Your voice is heard in Gaza, wherever you are. All the best. We will continue our work as civil society organizations with our partners in order to deliver what we can from the basic things that we can do. Thank you.
Jad, thank you very much for sharing that moving and distressing picture of how things are on the ground at the moment. Our next panelist, Mahmoud Al-Saka, from a colleague of mine from Oxfam. He's Oxfam's Food Security and Livelihood Coordinator. Unfortunately, I think what Mahmoud is going to share with us now is probably equally bleak. Mahmoud, can you paint a picture for us of your experiences and what famine is looking like on the ground in Gaza City right now, and how people in a confirmed famine suffering the impacts of starvation, of malnutrition, are coping, and considering how they and their families will respond to Israel's order to leave Gaza City and move to the so-called humanitarian area in southern Gaza. Thank you, Mahmoud.
Thank you, Jackie. Unfortunately, the situation is not getting improved, and we are still facing this catastrophic situation in Gaza Strip. The people here in Gaza are still enduring this daily nightmare of fear for almost 2 years, and we can see that it's compounded now in the Gaza City. And you can clearly see that in the faces of the people here in Gaza. And we also, as a part of those people, we are all here are confused and are feel disoriented and feeling lost and powerless, and really didn't know how to act with such situation. For the situation, also the food situation, since the declaration of famine in Gaza, we are seeing there is an increase in the deaths of people here in Gaza. Just for today, a new person have died because of the famine, and we are talking about since this declaration, more than 126 people have lost their lives because of that, including 26 children, according to the records here. So we are still facing the same conditions for famine, and we are still seeing the numbers of the people who are starving, and the malnutrition cases are increasing. Just to know, and I think most of us know, that most of the population here in Gaza Strip are depending on aid because they lost all means of survival, and they lost their livelihoods, and they didn't have any income sources in that regards. Most of the population, and they are depending on the humanitarian aid. And what we are seeing that's coming in is a trickle of aid entering Gaza. And most of this aid, more than 98% of the food aid is looted. So we didn't have this equity distribution, and there is no access for the aid from the vulnerable households. So we are seeing over the time the vulnerability of the households who cannot even access this aid is increasing, and this will resulted in more and more deterioration in the nutritious situation of those families. And we are still anticipating the increasing of spreading the famine in the Gaza, and according even to the last declaration that it could be expanded to the Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis. And unfortunately, as I said, it's not reaching the people who are in need, in a desperate need. We are seeing some of the food items are exist in the local market, but unfortunately, it's not affordable for the families that we are talking about. Most of the families who cannot afford even the food that it's trickle in our local markets, because they didn't have the capacity also to reach, and we are still even lacking the nutritious food in our market in that regards. But in the same time, we as Oxfam and other like-minded organizations and other humanitarian organizations are unable even until now to get our supplies in because of the Israeli rejections, the blockade, and the restrictions of the entry of the food, knowing that such entry of food is sufficient for the whole Gaza Strip for months. But unfortunately, it's unfolded. All these facts are compounded by the recent evacuation orders from the Israeli. So we are, and to be honest, this is part of the genocide that Israel is committing nowadays in Gaza. They are ordering people to leave their homes. The people here in Gaza are too weak, and even as we said, they are starving. So they are ordering them to leave their homes, and even they didn't have the capacity to afford any kind of costs related to displacement, for a new displacement. We all know that the people in Gaza have been forced to be displaced multiple times. So now they are exhausted, and even they didn't have the sources and to afford such a new orders. In the same times, we are seeing that the plan of the Israeli is to push all the people, more than 2 million people, in a very tiny space. It's already overcrowded in the southern area. We are talking about moving 1 million to this area. So we can see more than 2 million in a very tiny space, do not exceed 13% of the Gaza Strip area. So you can imagine that this, what is called a humanitarian zone, is lacking even the essential services. And you can imagine to also pushing another 1 million people to this area. So according to our direct contact with the people, they cannot afford even the cost for moving. And also they are unwilling also to leave to such areas, because we all know that there's no safe place in Gaza Strip. And also they are knowing that it's already overcrowded. So they even knowing that they will not get sufficient, and there's no guarantee for getting accommodation, and also other aspects of health, including the health, hygiene, nutrition, all these things, they cannot even have it there. So unfortunately, as I said, the situation is getting worse without having decisive action from the people who have this action and who have this power in order to stop Israel from committing this genocide and ethnic cleansing in Gaza Strip. We will see the worst is coming. So, and we were alarming a lot and many times in the past, even regarding the famine, but unfortunately we didn't have this decisive action. I think it's time to act, and we need a concrete and a very urgent act in that regards in order to avoid such deterioration that we are anticipating. Thank you.
Mahmoud, thank you so much for your contributions there. I'm going to move on to our next panelist. I'd like to welcome Salma Altawil, Northern Gaza Office Manager with Norwegian Refugee Council, who's based in Gaza City. Salma, NRC, the Norwegian Refugee Council, has been trying to provide shelter in one of the most dangerous places on earth. Can you speak to the condition of displaced people right now, as well as the shelter needs and the abilities of agencies to respond in Gaza City? Thank you, Salma.
Thank you, Jackie, and hello, everyone. Since 2 years, since the beginning of the war, we are trying our best to support the people in Gaza City and the north. For me personally, while I was also trying to protect and care of my 4 children and my family in the middle of this very dangerous situation, NRC has 36 staff members in Gaza City, and we are doing our best to support people. However we can, despite the ongoing siege and increasing insecurity. Our teams provide essential services, including legal assistance, water and sanitation, education, site management, shelter and protection. And every year, we reach tens of thousands of people. Currently, we have been forced to pause our activities for 48 hours to review our contingency plans and carefully assessing what level of support we can provide without putting our staff at risk. We are carefully assessing what level of interventions is possible right now, while taking into account the serious security risks for our staff and the communities we serve. Since the military operation was announced in Gaza City, people have been living in fear and confusion, including us as aid workers. Yesterday's displacement order made this even worse, as so many families do not want to leave because there is no safe place all over Gaza Strip, and others simply cannot afford it because the transportation costs around $700, and even the tent can cost up to $1,000. They have to find a land to put their tent, and this is impossible for families who already have nothing. In the past few days, the bombing has intensified significantly, and the high buildings have been targeted. This has caused a sharp increase in the displacement. Many people are now living in the streets with no shelter at all. And in Gaza City, people are living in destroyed buildings, in tents, and even in the middle of the streets, or with no shelters at all. Conditions are extremely overcrowded and unsafe. On average, half square meters per person now, and compared to the international standard, it should be 3.5 square meters. And even people, when they try to move, they carry what little belongings they have. I try to focus and see what people are carrying while they are moving from place to place inside Gaza, or from north to south. I see mattresses that are torn, blankets worn up, and everything is damaged. But there is no alternative, as nothing new is allowed in, and the markets are completely empty. No shelter items and no clothes in the markets. And also for those who can move to the south, the challenges continues. There is very little shelter items and high costs and almost no safe housing options. As NRC leads the shelter cluster, which coordinates partners to provide emergency shelter and household items, the needs are massive. 1.4 million people require emergency shelter, and 3,500 truckloads of materials are needed just to stabilize the situation. And over 1 million tarpaulins, 86,000 tents, and 5 million household items have been procured or ordered, but very few are allowed into Gaza. Since the mid of August, only 1,175 tents have entered through the UN system, and this can support just 6,500 people. That means that less than half of 1% of those in need can get benefit from that. Israel continues to block NRC and other international NGOs from bringing in shelter items like tents, tarpaulins, ceiling kits, and kitchen sets. Even when some approvals are given, customs clearance is another obstacle. And UNRWA is banned completely, which is very concerning since it holds half of non-food items in stock. If restrictions continue, the winter response will face a severe gap. In addition to the new displacement orders that covers all over Gaza City. And families here are living in unsafe, undignified, and overcrowded conditions. As a humanitarian worker and as a mother, I see clearly how urgent this crisis is. People cannot survive without safe shelter, water, and food. And the only solution for now is a ceasefire as soon as possible to protect the people from the displacement, from those hard conditions that we are witnessing now. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Salma. Thank you very much indeed. Next up, we were due to be joined by Yazdan El Amawi from ANIRA. Unfortunately, Yazdan can't be with us now. But he has recorded some remarks earlier today on the serious shortages of clean water facing people in Gaza now, and ANIRA and Yazdan speaks for ANIRA, his organization, a humanitarian organization in Gaza. So we'll hear his words now. If technology is...
Here are Gaza branch manager speaking from Gaza. I would like to thank everybody for having me and my colleagues, and I would like to thank all colleagues who spoke before me and those who are going to speak after me. I will touch today and give you a brief picture of the water situation and the Gaza Strip in general, and particularly in Gaza, with some of the serious challenges the IDPs and the people are facing every day just to access clean and safe water. As we all know, like in terms of water availability, it's extremely limited. And based on the records, Gaza needs about 140 liters per person per day for drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene. Right now, people are getting as little as 8 liters a day in the north of Gaza, which means Gaza City and the northern governorate of the Gaza Strip, 19 liters per day in the south, which makes like just 14 liters per day on average across the strip. That is barely enough for drinking and minimal washing. Where water comes from, but it's not enough actually, because we have a few sources of water. We have the desalination plants are the main source now, with 8 private plants running, mostly in the north. And unfortunately, this is going to be minimized based on the evacuation order and the dismantling of some of the units that are located at red zone. There is also one central plant in the south and a UAE supported pipeline. But some facilities are offline due to power cuts and lack of maintenance. We have the wells, a few, only 22 are working, all in the north. And we have Mikrot line. The Israeli water supply is mostly cut off now, providing just 20,000 cubic meters per day, down from 45,000 normally it does. I would like to walk you through key challenges on the ground. We have fuel shortages. No fuel means no power for pumps, and desalination plants shut down regularly. We have restricted access. Evacuation orders block teams from reaching water points or repairing system. One of the major challenges we have, which is the team safety, as well as the water quality problems. No treatment or chemicals or spare parts are mostly available, which equivalent to unsafe water. In terms of like simply the demand and the huge demand of people and the ability for us to supply simply not enough water to reach everyone every day. Also, something that has been really striking all our team while they are distributing water in the north and in the south, that people are using jelly make water, like as you know, even more dangerous, causing health and hygienic problems. With so little water, poor sanitation is spreading diseases, especially among children living in crowded shelters, as you know. And this has been witnessed throughout our clinics, as well as throughout the regular reports coming from WHO and major stakeholders. Allow me, while I'm really closing this statement, that to tap on major messages. The situation is dire. Gaza people are struggling daily for even the most basic water needs. This isn't just a supply issue. It's about safety and access, quality and survival. Addressing this requires urgent support from the international community, from all agencies, increase the level of coordination and pushing for access for more fuel and supplies and safe delivery mechanisms. Thank you so much, and hoping for an imminent ceasefire and end up of this horrible situation soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks indeed to Yazdan from Anira there, and mirroring words that I'm sure we all feel, calling for a ceasefire now. Dr. Rami Al-Shaya is next, but actually before I get to you, Dr. Rami, I will just mention to people to please keep putting your questions into the Q&A. We're getting plenty of questions, but we'll be starting the Q&A section a little later, and we'd like as many questions as possible. And as I said, we'll get to as many as we can. Dr. Rami Al-Shaya is head of the emergency department at Al-Auda Hospital in Gaza City. Dr. Rami, you've been working inside Gaza City's remaining hospitals. Can you tell us what's happening right now inside emergency rooms and what your teams are doing with so little medicine, fuel or equipment?
Thank you. Thank you for your invitation. Actually, nowadays, what we witness in Gaza is not new. It's happening and repeating from 2 years. It's like a movie. But what's new is that we have starving or hunger doctors who is trying to heal a starving and injured patient. These days, in the hospital, in the emergency departments, inside the intensive care unit, and inside the operating room, there is a huge number of injured people. This department, all of it are full of capacity and over the capacity. A lot of cases died while waiting to be operated. A lot of injured people lost a limb while waiting any medical intervention. One of the injury may include multiple specialists to deal with, and this will exhaust the team, of course. Many of the medical intervention cannot be provided due to the shortage of the life-saving medical supplies which are available here in Gaza Strip. Let's talk about our hospital at Al-Auda Hospital. For example, at Tal Zatar Hospital at north of Gaza, our medical supplies warehouse was targeted, and so we lost all our supplies inside it. All of it were gone. This, of course, affected our medical intervention that we provide for the patient. My team and my colleagues, all of them are working day and night from 2 years at the emergency department, of course. Sometime, if there is some free time, they also help at the operating room performing surgeries with other surgeons. Nowadays, all of them are completely exhausted. They are tired. It's been 2 years and there is no stoppage. Some type of injuries need more than one doctor and more than one nurse to deal with. And a lot of medical supplies for this case will affect our supplies, will affect our health provider and our intervention. For examples, there is a lot of surgeries, a huge number of surgeries, about 400 surgeries was postponed due to the lack of supplies. These surgeries include general surgery, orthopedic surgery, and other subspecialties and specialties. We have a lot of medical equipment nowadays not working and cannot be repaired due to the lack of their parts. Of course, this also affects our system, our healthcare system to perform some surgeries. So these surgeries are postponed, or sometimes, for example, like laparoscopic surgeries. There is a problem in the laparoscope, it's not working well, there is no part to repair it. So the surgeon may have the choice to do the surgery by open method, and this will, of course, affect the patient, making some complications, or even will have a lot of medical supplies. Also will consume time and effort from the surgeon and the nurse who dealing with this case. Uh, Currently, hospitals and healthcare centers in the north of Gaza are threatened with evacuation and displacement to the south of Gaza. This hospital, we don't know how it will evacuate its equipment, its medical devices to the south. I think this is madness. We are facing, we are like in a movie, in a science fiction movie. How can this do? Hospitals that have been fully equipped for decades are being asked to completely emptied and evacuated to the other side of the town. With how we will evacuate this equipment? By what? Are the necessary resources even available for it? Of course, no. All of the people here in Gaza, of course, refuse to be displaced to the south, and they insist to stay here in the north, even if they will lose their lives. Of course, those people who will remain in the north will be left without any type of health services if these hospitals are evacuated. Most of our health centers affiliated with Al-Awda Health Association in the north of Gaza are operating under extreme danger and are at risk of being targeted or evacuated at any time. The simplest things we need from medical supplies like gauze is not available nowadays. It's not available. So how we will deal with that huge number of injured people coming to the emergency department? The fuels needed for providing electricity to the hospitals. Also, we have a lack on it. Not every day is available. So sometimes we postpone surgery. Sometimes we cannot deal with patients. It's a big problem actually here in these days. We are nowadays from about 1 week, Al-Awda Hospital opened a new field hospital in the south of Gaza at Al-Nusayrat. This was due to the huge number of people who moved and displaced to that region. So Al-Awda Hospital want to support these people. Al-Awda Hospital opened this new field hospital for gynecology and obstetric surgeries. This hospital have about 23 beds for admission and have 7 emergency beds and 4 delivery. Also, there is 2 operating and surgery rooms with another for subspecialty clinic for mainly for gyna and obstetric.
Dr.
The
Rami,
situation.
it's a really horrific situation that you describe for us, and I know some of the journalists here have questions that they'd like to put to you and to others. So I'm so sorry to cut in on you there, but can we come back and maybe cover some of these areas in the questions, and we'll bring in the other couple of speakers, and we'll come back to you in a couple of minutes, Dr. Rami. And just to say to our media audience, if I know some of you have put hands up asking to put questions in, if you wouldn't mind putting them into the Q&A box, if you just write your questions in there, we can put them to the panelists here with us today. So thank you so much, Dr. Rami. And as I said, Dr. Rami can take questions if people could please direct questions to him or put questions into the Q&A box. Next up, also speaking to the medical area, Doctors Without Borders, Caroline Willeman is the coordinator for that organization. Caroline has been in Gaza for the past 2 months. You just left a few days ago, but during the time you were there, Caroline, can you tell us a bit about what you saw, how you watched the food, health and security situation in particular deteriorate over the time that you were there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jackie, and thanks to the Palestinian colleagues who gave their testimony. I am humbled to speak amongst you. Indeed, I entered Gaza City at the end of June, knowing very well I would be witnessing a genocide with my own eyes. I described the situation from day 2 as dystopian and apocalyptic, and I could not have imagined that every single day things would get worse. So in terms of the policy of starvation, we saw a 5-fold increase in malnutrition patients in our malnutrition program, children between 6 months and 5-year-olds, as well as pregnant and lactating women. My own colleagues came to work hungry on a very regular basis. They would not have eaten for 24 hours, for 48 hours. In 9 years working with Doctors Without Borders, I have never seen this before. Our medical colleagues would also explain to me the extent to which the hunger would impact the medical issues that patients had in terms of how burns or orthopedic injuries would be healing. Namely, they would not heal the way they should because people were not eating well. When it came to health, so we run a primary healthcare center in Gaza City. When I arrived, we had around 450 patients per day. By the time I left, we regularly had over 600 patients, and we would have to send away up to 200 patients per day because we simply did not have the capacity to deal with all of them. One of the most horrendous things that I saw when I was there was the relentless shooting at people looking for food. I think of a 14-year-old boy who was shot in the leg at the Zikim border crossing when he was looking for food. His parents described to me that his 11-year-old brother was shot dead at a similar place a month before. I think of a 30-year-old father of 2 children, 1 and 3 years old, who was convinced his children would die of hunger, and so he also went to Zikim looking for food. And when I met him, his left arm was amputated because he had been shot. This is the daily reality that we see in Gaza City, and indeed it comes with the relentless bombing. My own colleagues being displaced, showing up to work at 8 in the morning, having had to run out of their house the evening before, grabbing their children, running out barefoot because the bombing was coming so close. Some of my colleagues have been displaced up to 15 times. Of course, we see this in our patients as well. The boy that will always stay with me is 7-year-old Abdallah, whose body was 35% burnt, whose mother, father, and 4 siblings were killed in the airstrike on the school where they were sheltering there. And I'm very sorry to say this, but this is the reality. Their body remains were collected in a bucket by their uncle, and the uncle asked our doctor, "Do you understand how precious is this boy?" And this is a question I would really like to ask the world. Does anybody understand how precious is life in Gaza? We have seen things only deteriorate in the last few weeks in Gaza City, increased evacuation orders, people having to move. We are seeing a systematic destruction of Palestinian life, and we need urgent and radical action to still turn around the total annihilation. We are very close to it, and we can only call on the international community, make it stop now. Thank you very much.
Caroline, thank you for your powerful words there. Next up, I'd like to invite Rachel Cummings, Gaza Humanitarian Director with Save the Children, to speak. Rachel has worked in complex humanitarian settings, I know, for 20 years and been in Gaza since 2024, early 2024. Rachel, can you talk to us a little bit about the situation for children and families in the southern areas of Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis that Israel has labelled safe or humanitarian? What are the conditions like there? And what access do you have to support populations there? And if you could talk about conditions for children having to flee Gaza City, knowing how particularly vulnerable they are. Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity. And maybe just to echo the words from MSF, just to acknowledge the work of Palestinian humanitarians in Gaza who show up every day to work to support and alleviate suffering. It's extraordinarily humbling. The situation in Gaza for children is absolutely dire. It's catastrophic for children. And others have said, you know, you think every day it cannot get any worse, and every day it actually does get worse. And what we're seeing now with this massive forced displacement from Gaza City is extraordinary. It's on that scale that we have not seen before. There is nowhere safe for people to go across the whole of Gaza. There is the so-called humanitarian zone in Al-Mawasi, Khan Yunis, along the coast road. Now, today I drove from Deir al-Balah down to Khan Yunis to visit our primary healthcare centres, our nutrition centres, some of our child protection work, and that work of our partners as well. And it's absolutely packed. There is nowhere for people to go to. And within that space that is already extremely overcrowded, which of course raises significant protection concerns for children and public health and health concerns for children and their families, with overcrowding, poor water sanitation, not adequate toilets, and nowhere for people to wash their hands or even to drink clean water. And of course, the food insecurity. There is a famine declared in parts of Gaza. And what we will see, and what we are seeing, is people being forcibly displaced from Gaza City who are on the brink of famine or in famine. The world has to acknowledge that children are being starved in Gaza. For the last 23 months, children have been bombed constantly and they've been living in fear. So the question of this massive displacement of a population group from Gaza City, which includes, we don't know, but maybe 500,000, 600,000 children, there is nowhere for them to go. And already they are absolutely exhausted and have been living in extreme fear for the last 23 months. You know, other colleagues have said, people in Gaza have literally lost count of how many times they've been displaced. And I know from my team here, and again from being out this morning in Khan Yunis, there is nowhere for people to rent, so the land becomes prime. But of course, there is no land now for people to move into. So the situation is absolutely desperate. We have a very small and closing window of opportunity to stop this madness of displacing a whole population group from Gaza. The fear, the concern of organizations like Save the Children, who work with the most vulnerable people within populations, not only, of course, for the immediate impact this will have on children, but the medium and long-term impact this has on a whole generation and a whole population in terms of their health, but also their mental health. Is very, very concerning, very, very concerning. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Moving words, and that brings us into the questions and answers section of today's briefing. as a reminder to all of you, please put your questions into the Q&A box. And when you're asking a question, please identify yourself, the name of your media outlet, and we'll get to as many questions as we can, of course. But just to remind you also that we'll be sharing media contact details after, and as well as a recording of today's briefing. So if you want to request more in-depth interviews, you can certainly follow up with the various media contact persons. So a few questions here already in. I have a question here to Caroline. Has there been an increase in access to humanitarian aid in Gaza since the EU-Israel understanding?
I think what I have seen in the month and a half that I was still there after that understanding, yes, there has been a trickle of aid coming in, but it is absolutely nowhere near the needs of people there. We can't say there is nothing entering anymore, but it's absolutely not in balance with the enormous needs of a malnourished population. And I think also the question goes way beyond just access to aid when it comes to EU actions. It goes as well to what are you doing to stop what is happening. Bringing in aid is incredibly important right now, but what can the EU and what is the EU choosing to do to actually stop the assaults on Gaza City? They famously would keep a close watch on what is happening. I am at a point where I cannot how to even put it? I don't even have words for this image of we will please keep a close watch. We've been keeping a close watch for 23 months. It is extremely clear what is happening in Gaza, and I can only wonder how anyone with the power to make an end to it actually sleeps at night these days. Thank you.
Caroline, thank you. I have a question here for Salma. Salma, how many people do you believe remain in Gaza City? How many do you think are resolving to stay, come what may? Secondly, Kogat by the IDF has put out a statement saying there are many places in the south that are open and have provided images of empty fields. What is your reaction to this, please? So how many people still around Gaza and determined to stay, and your response then to that idea of all these open fields for people to move to?
Yes,
thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. And according to the latest indications, so far less than 10% of people have left Gaza City. And from my conversation with my colleagues, with my family, with my friends and neighbors, many of them decided to stay in Gaza City. They do not want to go through the trauma of displacement again because they suffered from it previously. And most feel that there is no truly safe place anywhere in Gaza Strip. I believe that more than 500,000 people will remain in Gaza City, which means that any intensification of the military operation will have a very bad impact on civilians because they will remain and they are moving in the streets and saying we will remain in Gaza City, will not leave. As I mentioned in my briefing, that the cost of relocating or displacement from north to south is very high, and people for around 2 years are without income, and they do not have even $1 to pay for this displacement or relocation to another place. And regarding the areas that has been announced, it's already heavily populated by residents of Rafah and eastern Khan Younis. And it's very difficult to imagine how 2 million people could live in such a limited space. We are humans and we are civilians. And like anyone else, we have the right to live in dignity and safety. And the option that the people should go to Mawasi area, which is a very limited area, it's not a sustainable or a human solution for us. Thank you.
Salma, thank you for that. And another question related in the same area to these bases in southern Gaza to you, Rachel. What humanitarian services or support are available in the humanitarian area where people are being encouraged to move to, and are any NGOs operating there, or the UN, or is it just this what's called the GHF distribution sites?
So the children are the partners. We're working and we will continue to work in Khan Yunis, Deir al-Balah. But of course, it's constantly a challenge for us to be able to provide any degree of safety and security for our teams to be able to move around Gaza, to be able to reach vulnerable communities, vulnerable children in those communities. We provide services, as I said earlier, I think child protection, education, learning, nutrition and health. As a humanitarian community, we are very adept. We've been doing this for obviously a very long time, adapting to the evolving context, the change in the dynamics and the kinetic activity, the forcible displacement of populations into smaller and smaller areas. So it is absolutely not the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, who are not a humanitarian organization. They are doing distributions of food that are literally killing people. So we are not part of that, but we will continue to provide services and support wherever we can for children in Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis. And of course, there are many partners working and doing their best in these extraordinary times. And in Gaza City, we have other agencies, MSF, other agencies, also Save the Children, working with our partners in Gaza City. But, you know, it's been said, but each member of the humanitarian community, each Palestinian, is directly impacted as an individual. So they are coming to work every day to serve populations, alleviate suffering, provide a degree of hope for children and their families, whilst each of them being personally impacted and forcibly displaced time and time again.
Rachel, thank you so much. Mahmoud, a question for you. Could you talk a little about how many people are left have already left Gaza City, and how you expect the situation to develop in the period over the coming days, if people choose to stay, what their fate might be?
Thank you, Jackie. I will continue about what already said by Salma in that regards. To be honest, according to our information and also to the cluster that is responsible for tracking the movement of the people in that regards, we are saying at less than 10% have evacuated Gaza in that regards. But I need you to imagine that we have the families here in Gaza where a lot of people with disabilities are part of those families, and the elderly people. And those who have been displaced multiple times, as I said, they exhausted all means of survivals. And according to our studies, and also the cash working group in coordination with the protection clusters, they are making some calculations about the cost of the movement of the families from Gaza in case they decided to go to the south. You cannot imagine the numbers that revealed from that. We are talking about thousands of dollars in order to be able to evacuate into the south. We have two kinds of people who have been evacuated or decided to evacuate. They know the place that they are going to, and some people are going there without having a place to go. And the cost is extremely different, and it's very high. So this is why we are seeing some people are returning back from the south, because there is no space there. As I said, we just need to imagine how much crowdness could be in case these 1 billion people have evacuated to the south. The people who are going to stay in Gaza, to be honest, they will be targeted. There will be the intensifying of the Israeli attacks on them to force them to flee their lands and to flee their homes towards the southern area. And also, to be honest, we are also expecting that there will be more restrictions in aid in the Gaza Strip, also to force the people and to make this pressure on the people. What we are witnessing here is not just an inhuman act from the Israeli and committing this genocide, but also it's even the solutions and the plans they are presented, it's infeasible and also unlogic in that regards. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mahmoud. I have a question for Amjad now. Amjad, the protection of humanitarian workers during the war has not been sufficient. How do you expect now, following the displacement order, this will be affected, the protection of humanitarian workers under international law in the eyes of the IDF?
Thank you. But before this question, I have to tell you, there's 25,000 school students today. Since Saturday till now, they are passing the final exams of the high school. This is showing this kind of resilient community that we have. Although the airstrikes, displacement orders, the weak internet signals that we have, these students are giving us kind of hope that we will not give up. Second, as aid workers, whether national or international, we are committed to the humanitarian principles. We are committed to the people. Where they are, we will be with them. Whatever the risks are. We know that Israel attacking the UN, as 360 of the UNRWA staff members were killed. From the national NGOs, we have more than 230 people were killed from the aid workers. So many colleagues, they lost part of their families, but after a few days, they're back to their work. We will continue being with the people, whatever the risks are. The international community failed to protect the civilians and the civil organizations and the aid workers. It's real time now for the international community to act immediately as soon as possible to save the lives. Hundreds of thousands of people will stay in Gaza in very critical moments. I could see the faces. People in bad need for actions now. The statements is very important, but the most important things, actions in order to protect the civilians and to enter the different aid supplies to Gaza. What had been entered only respond to 10% of the needs, and most of it is looted. Our premises, 80% of our premises destroyed, and one of them is Bingo office, which is destroyed by an Israeli airstrike. They destroy, and we will continue our work from the tent, from the site, from wherever we can do the work. Now there is another airstrike in Gaza. There is non-stop airstrikes. And when I say airstrike, it's mean more casualties, more people to be killed, more destruction. 60% of Gaza is leveled, as happened in Rafah, Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia. People are staying here because they know if they left, Gaza will be leveled and no way to be back. Gaza is not owned by Gazans only. This thousands of years history. The old city of Gaza leveled and destroyed. We are not only the owners of this land. Maybe this is one of the last media briefing to do before Gaza could be occupied, or we will have a miracle will happen to stop this military operation. Whatever any can do, the journalist, civil society, any activist to do, to pressure the governments to save these lives, these innocent lives, these children who malnutritioned, who denied the basic rights of protection. We are not numbers to be calculated how many people were killed. No, our lives valuable as any other lives. Thank you.
Amjad, thank you indeed. Rachel, there's a question here asking for some more details on Al-Mawasi, and Amjad described the bleak situation in Gaza City and the bleak prospects facing people. But one of the biggest dilemmas I know people face in Gaza City is around making whichever choice they make is an impossible choice. Can you talk a little bit more about describe Al-Mawasi and why the choice is so impossible for people to make?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Gaza Strip is very thin. If you look at the landmass of Gaza, and one of our colleagues mentioned maybe 12-13% of the total landmass of Gaza remains in the so-called humanitarian zone, where we have regular and routine targeted strikes killing children and family members and civilians. In Al-Mawasi, and I was there this morning, I've been there quite a bit this week, the roads, of course, 100,000 people approximately have now made that impossible decision and are on the one road, the beach road, the coast road rather, heading towards Al-Mawasi. So that road is extremely congested, very, very full of trucks, cars, donkey carts, whatever people can find to move whatever household items or bags or clothes that they have, and people, whatever they can find, they're using in terms of transportation. But the area of land is, as I said, extremely congested and overcrowded already. And we know from previous displacements last year that people will be forced to live either outside of the humanitarian zone towards the eastern part of Khan Yunis or on the beach. And that is obviously very, very dangerous. And we already see tents and families establishing space on the beach, on the side of the road, which is extremely dangerous, of course, for people to be living that close to the sea with the tides, etc., etc. So very, very concerning situation. And, you know, the impossible choices that people are being forced to make. We will have seen the evacuation notice that was issued by social media, via airdrops, where literally the arrows are pointing south. The whole population is being forced down, and there is nowhere safe for them to go.
Rachel, thank you. Mahmoud, there's a question here, and I'll read it out as it's written, and maybe add a little more to it if people don't mind. With aid supplies in Kerem Shalom and more arriving daily, do you think the IDF is coordinating well with its international partners, or where are the biggest problems? And you might also address how that's perceived in the media, how there is maybe information about the amount of aid coming in and what the reality is, and if there's a difference between the two.
So I just want to start at that most of us who are presenting here, who are presenting different humanitarian aid organizations, are not allowed even to get supplies in. We have a lot, many hundreds, thousands of items stuck outside Gaza Strip in Jordan and Egypt, and we are unable to get it in because of the restrictions, the Israeli restrictions, and the rejections for our request in that regards. So this is just to clarify that there is a trickle that of the aid that coming in. And the issue with the aid is coming in is not about the size of the aid that's coming. It's about the regularity of the aid is coming. So according to the restrictions of the Israeli, we didn't have this regularity and stability in getting supplies in. So this is why we are still seeing that more than 98% of the supplies are looted. This is because of the scarcity of these items in our for the families here in Gaza. So this is doubting the issue of coordinating or well coordinating with the international NGOs and the UN agencies in that regards. When we are seeing that the people and when we are seeing that we are addressing the famine in a proper way, we can say that we have this well coordination with the Israeli side, where we all the humanitarian agencies have this ability to get their supplies in and to address the needs of the people and to fulfill our mandate in serving the people who are in a desperate need in the Gaza Strip, who are in an urgent need, but we didn't have the capacity even in some cases to respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahmoud. I might, Dr. Rami, just point that question in your direction as well about aid coming in, but in particular medical supplies and medical equipment, and what you're seeing and how much of a need there is.
Actually, all the hospital, even the Ministry of Health, have lack in the medical supplies. Everything here is lack, from equipment, from supplies like gauze, like painkillers and other medication, IV antibiotic, all the instrument needed for performing surgeries. All of this we have lack on it. The other big problem is the fuels. If there is no fuel, so we cannot, the hospital cannot work. Everything will be turned off. A lot of times we perform surgeries on the with no light, on the or even on the telephone light. Uh, this is a big challenge for the surgeon and for the healthcare team. Uh, the ICU should be prepared well in every hospital, and we have big lack in the ICU bed in all the hospitals. A lot of cases died while we were searching for an ICU bed. The surgeon performed his surgery, and at the end, the patient need to be stayed at least for 24 hours at the ICU, but there is no available ICU bed, so the patient died, and all the work gone. uh, it's useless. A lot of people, we was dealing with them for hours, and at last they died because of the lack of medical supplies. We are asking all the worldwide organization and all the healthcare providers in all the world and other organization to supply the hospital here in Gaza with medical supplies. As Dr. Mahmoud Al-Saka said before, not only the food is an aid here in Gaza, also the medical supplies, unfortunately, in Gaza also is an aid. So we are just to support these people, to support their staying here in the north or even on the south of Gaza. We please just provide us with the medical supply to continue our work and to provide our health care system and to keep going on uh, and keeping these people continue their life here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're just coming up to time now. I'm going to put one more question, the final question, to Salma. A question has come in saying, you mentioned your own 4 children, and the question is, what are they telling you about their lives, and what do they say to you about the work you do to try to help others?
Thanks for the question. Actually, my children are like all the children in Gaza. They feel very afraid and they are scared to sleep at night. They all lie next to me just to feel a little safer, even though I know I cannot protect them from these heavy weapons and the airstrikes. But I try to emotionally support them all the time. And they always ask me a question that I'm not able to answer. They ask me why is this happening to us, and why are children being targeted in Gaza? I'm sure that no one can answer this question, and it has not any answer, because children have and civilians have to be protected all the time. Children here in Gaza lost all of their rights and all of their hopes, including my children. And about my work, they are always curious and ask me about the details, what support we are providing, what we are delivering to the population. It's a bomb very close to me. And because they care about others and feel the suffering around them, they are curious about what we deliver to people. And of course, they are proud that their mother is helping people. And together with my husband, they encourage me to continue in this role, even in these very difficult circumstances. Thank you. I'm sorry for the interruption. It was an airstrike very close to me.
Salma, thank you. And thank you to all of our panelists here today. Really deeply appreciate all of you coming here and sharing your experiences and the horrors that you're surrounded by. I know it's particularly difficult at the moment, and we really appreciate you taking the time and sharing. Thank you everyone for attending. We'll circulate a recording of today's briefing alongside media focal points by email shortly. We urge journalists and the public, as many of our panelists have said here today, to not only listen, but to act, to amplify these voices, to hold power to account, to demand immediate concrete measures to protect the people of Gaza, and to push forward urgently a ceasefire, a sustainable ceasefire, and the opening of borders to allow unfettered access of aid, medical supplies, food, water, vital equipment, and more. We'll be in touch. You know where we are. Journalists, please, keep telling the stories, and people, as you can see, are willing to, even under these most harrowing circumstances, when everybody is stretched to the absolute limit, they're willing to keep telling the stories, because they know that the word has to keep going out there if there's any hope of the change that is so badly and urgently needed coming about. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
No.